Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for our garden theme class. Today, we're going to be focusing on the Satin Ice Fondant, and I'm really excited. We can go to the overhead camera and I'll give you guys a close-up of what we're making today. So these are the cupcakes we're making. We have a little planter with flowers, a watering can, and then some tools over here, some gardening tools. And today we're just going to be using some simple techniques. We're going to be doing some color mixing to get different shades like the lighter pastel green and this kind of like red clay terracotta color. And we're also going to be using the Shimmer Fondant as well, which is really fun. So some of the supplies we'll be using today is a silicone mat. This is this is what's on my table. This helps to not have the fondant stick to your surface, so you don't have to use as much cornstarch. And then I do have cornstarch here in case it does start to stick to my surface. You don't want to use too much of this. This can actually dry out the fondant a lot. It's just, you want to use it very sparingly. So if you have warmer hands, if you're in a warmer environment, you might want to dust a little bit on your surface, and I'll show you guys as we're working how much to use. I also have water here and a paintbrush. So this is going to help me stick the fondant to each other. Water makes sugar sticky naturally, so that's why I like to use water. If you have edible glue, you can use that. I know some people use like piping gel sometimes as well. I also have a rolling pin here, scissors to help us open up our fondant packs, and then I have a circle cutter. This is around 2 inches. This is going to be used for our fondant discs right here. And then I have a rectangle cutter. This is about 1.25 inches. And then another, I have a square cutter. This is about 1.25 inches as well. And then this very small flower plunger cutter, which is around 1/4 inch. All right, so I also have a small sharp knife and an X-Acto knife. This just helps me when I'm working with smaller pieces to cut. So I like to use a smaller knife. I have my recipe for our color mix. That's gonna be fun to show you guys. And then, so the colors that we're going to be working with today are green, orange, white, pink, red, the silver shimmer fondant, and the black fondant. And then over here, I have some cupcakes that are already frosted that we'll be putting our fondant discs on top of. Since I do not have direct access to a sink right now, I'm using some wet towels to wipe my hands in between working with different colors. And of course, some dry paper towels as well. And then I also have some little like sandwich baggies. This is going to help to keep the fondant so that it doesn't dry out. If you have Tupperware, that's even better, but you just want to make sure that once your fondant is open, you want to wrap it very tight and make sure there's no air. And then over here where you can't see on the camera, I have a piece of parchment paper. I like to use parchment paper to have the fondant pieces dry on top of that. And then I also have a food scale, which I normally don't bring the food scale onto these classes because I like to show you how to do a lot of things with the most minimal amount of tools. But we are doing a fancy color mix today, so I wanted to use this to show you guys, but I might be able to show you guys using just a part method rather than doing weight method. Okay, so let's get started. First, let's make the pastel green color because this is going to be our base. So we want to start with our base first. So I'm just going to clear my space a little bit, and we want to use the green and the white for this. So I'll put everything else to the side. Okay. Let me know if you guys have ever used fondant before, if this is your first time. I look forward to hearing. Fondant seems scary, but it's actually a lot of fun. I like to describe it kind of as an edible Play-Doh. It has a soft texture and it gets even softer as you knead it. From the warmth of your hands, it activates the gum in the product, and then it can be stretchy, roll thin. It's a lot of fun. I'm just going to use my scissors to cut open this pouch. I'm using the 4.4 ounces today because we are working with a very small amount of fondant for each piece. And for this pastel shade, really, I didn't make a color mixing recipe for this because I just eyeballed So mainly you're going to be using more white than green to get this pastel shade. So I'm just going to cut off a small portion. We just need enough of this color to roll out and make 3 discs. Obviously, if you're making more of these, you'll want to make more of this color, but you can just scale up your ratios. So here I am, I'm putting my opened container of fondant in this bag to make sure that it's not exposed to air. So once fondant is exposed to air, it can already begin its drying process. So it's important to not let it sit out in the open air for too long without you working with it. So we'll open up the white. And for the white, I think we're going to make this probably like twice as much as the green. And we'll see what shade we get. If you want it to be even lighter, you can go ahead and add more white once we start to mix this together. So I'm just going to cut off a portion that's about like twice as much as the green. I'm just going to wrap this back up. And I'm not going to close this too tight because I am going to use this again. So I'm just going to wrap it and try to make it so there's not so much air going through it. Okay, so to color mix, it's that easy. You're just going to take your portions of fondant, smash it together, and just start kneading. So if you're using a lot of fondant, you might tend to use the bottom of the palm of your hand to push down and then fold and push down. This is like an easier way. If you're using a very small amount of fondant like we are today, you can even just do it in between your hands. And at this point, you might start to notice that your fondant could be sticking to your hands. If your hands run on the warmer side, that's okay. So all you have to do is just sprinkle a little bit of cornstarch. And if too much comes out, that's okay. So you can just kind of rub it up across your surface and then put some to the side if you need any on your hands. That can help you for when you need. So my colors are beginning to mix together nicely. I am getting a pastel green. Again, if you want your green to be a little lighter than this, just add more white. That's why I love the Satin Ice fondant, because they come in such a variety of shades that you can really just mix the shades together to create unique ones. And you don't have to use any food dye. It makes it a lot easier. And please, if you guys have any questions along the way, just put them in the chat and Felicia will relay them to me. Any questions at all, anything about any of the Satin Ice products, what we're working on today? Okay, so my fondant is completely combined. So now I'm just going to roll it into a little ball. And then I'm going to just flatten it out a little bit on my surface. This will help get any air bubbles that might be stuck from us folding it. Okay, I already dusted my surface a little bit with the cornstarch. So now I'm going to roll this out. I would say for these discs, we're going to probably roll it out about 1/8 of an inch thick. I'll pick my piece up so that you guys can see how thick it is once I have it rolled out. So I just want to roll this out enough so that I can cut out 3 2-inch circles. Obviously, you can go by the size of your cupcake. These cupcakes are probably they're like standard cupcake size, but maybe on the smaller side a little bit. So if you have a bigger cupcake, you can use a bigger circle cutter for the top. Okay, I don't want to roll this out any thinner, but I could show you guys how thin this is. The thinner you roll it, the faster it's actually going to dry. And you can do this in advance. You don't have to do this as you're making these toppers. You can make your discs in advance and have them dry. This way you can put them directly on your cupcakes, because you don't want to put these onto your cupcakes right away. You want to let these sit out in the open air for at least 12 hours, just so they get nice and firm so you can easily pick them up. They normally dry to like a texture of a sprinkle. So it feels hard on the outside, but really it's easy to bite into. Okay, so we have our 3 pastel green discs cut out. And then this is where my parchment paper is going to come in. I'm going to pick these up and place them onto my parchment paper. And so I want to do this kind of quickly after I cut them, because like I said before, once the fondant is out, it's already starting to dry. And when you start to manipulate the fondant, once it starts to dry, you might notice there could be some cracks. So we want to minimize the chance of that. Just like lightly pick it up off of your surface. If you notice that it's starting to stick a little bit, you can just use your small knife and kind of gently go under it to help pick up the piece of fondant. So now we have these on our parchment. I'm just going to put these to the side, and then we can begin our next piece. So let's do the planter cupcake first. So this is going to involve the color mix I was talking about. Also, any of your leftover light green fondant you can put away into a bag. Make sure it's nice and airtight. And then even when I put it into a bag, I like to put this either back into a fondant pail or into a Tupperware to really make sure it's not exposed to air. This way you can use it again and there's no waste. Okay, so for this color mix, we're going to be using black. Get my black out. We're going to be using white, orange, and red. And it's so crazy to think that these 4 colors are going to create this really pretty like red clay terracotta color. All right, so we're only using a very small amount of black. So I'm actually also going to bring out my food scale. So I'm going to be working with the food scale in grams. And basically with this recipe, it's going to be 2 grams of black fondant, 16 grams of white fondant, 30 grams of orange fondant, and 20 grams of red fondant. If I didn't have the food scale, the way I would do it is 2 parts of black fondant, 16 parts of white fondant, 30 parts of orange fondant, and 20 parts of red fondant. This can go to any form of measurement. So if you're making a lot of this color, you can even convert this to pounds instead of grams or ounces or whatever you need to work with. So like I said, I'm going to be working with grams. So I'm just going to show you how much all this looks like at the end. And it's not going to be so much because we're really not making a big piece today. So that's why the quantities are quite small. And again, you can multiply these to make it a bigger quantity or scale them up to be pounds instead of grams. So I'm just going to open up the black fondant and I'm going to measure out 2 grams. So I'm just going to cut off a small piece. And there you go. That's went to 3 grams. So I'm just going to take a little bit off. And then after this, I'll explain how you can do this in the parts version. So I already have my white open from before. So I'm just going to take that out from the other bag. For the white, you need 16. So I'm just going to hit tear on the food scale so that I get to measure a new amount. And we need 16 white. Let's see. Need a little bit more. Just keep adding until it gets to 16. All right, there we are. Back in my bag. And then the next colors we have to measure are orange and red. This color is the most we're going to use. I'm going to hit tear again to make sure I'm zeroed out. And we need to measure 30. Okay. Now 20 red. If anyone has questions on this process, feel free to ask. We do have a ton of color mixes on our Pinterest page, a lot of fun ones, especially for different themes. If you're doing cupcakes or cake for a wedding, you can match the colors of the bridesmaids' dresses or the flowers. So the color mixes really do come in handy. So we're just measuring out 20 grams of red. So I'm just doing a little bit at a time until I reach 20. Okay, now we're at 20. So I have all of these different colors of fondant, and we're just going to do the same process we did before with the green and the white. And we're just going to mash these together until we get our red clay terracotta color.
Hey, Sarah, I have a question that's being asked. What do you do if you don't have a food scale?
Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what you do after the food scale. So if you don't have a food scale. So what you would do is I'm going to stop mixing this for a second, and I'm going to put it in a bag so I can show you guys with the other fondant that I don't have. So you would want to convert this to parts. So right now, like I said, I'm using the measurement for grams because I have a scale. Since you don't have a scale, you're going to use this as parts, like fractions almost. So we're going to take out all of our colors, and I'm actually going to take it completely out of the packaging so I can cut these into portions for you. Black. White. And really, I mean, you could probably eyeball this too. Like, you don't have to go exactly like, oh my God, this piece isn't exactly the size of this piece for the part. Don't get too stressed out about it. So I'm getting all the colors out. I'm just gonna get the red. So since all of these are in multiples of 2, I'm just going to start with the black, which is 2 parts. So say, I'm just going to cut off a portion of the black on the end because this is the straight edge. So say, first I'm just going to cut straight down, and I'm going to cut this piece in half. So that's going to be my 2 parts black right there. So I'm done with the black, and I'm going to move to my white, and I need 16 parts of white. So what I did was I'm going to place this on top of the white to get the width of it. And I'm going to cut down 1, cut it in half. So I have 2. So I need 8 of these because this is 2 parts right here. If you cut this in half, this would be 1 and 1. So I need 8 pieces of the white to create 16 parts because each of these equal 2. So again, I'm going to use the width of this to cut. This is actually going to give me more than I made with the scale because my measurement was smaller, but with this, I'm going to get more fondant out of it, more color. So I'm just going to do one more. Okay, so here I have my 16 parts of white. So this, keep in mind, each one of these is 2, a part of 2. So if you cut this in half, it would be 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8. So multiply that by 2, I have 16. So 2 parts black, 16 parts white. And you would do this same thing for all the other colors. Please let me know if I'm making sense or if you need me to explain it even more. It can get a little confusing. So I'll just walk you through how you would do it for the orange again. So you take your part, that's the 2 parts of the black. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to cut this into 2 so that it makes more sense. So this is your 2 parts black. You're going to put this on top of your orange to make sure you get the same width of that piece. Cut it. And again, cut that in half. And each of these are going to be worth 2 parts. And you need 30 of those. So you'd end up needing 15 pieces of the orange and so on and so forth. I don't want to take up too much time doing this because I do have to show how to do the 3 different designs. But please, if you still are confused about the process, let me know. And if I have time at the end of class, I can walk you through it more. Okay, so I'm just going to put these colors in Ziploc bags so that they stay nice.
And Sarah, real quick, while you're doing that, could you explain again why you left the pieces on the scale?
Why I left the pieces on the scale?
Yes.
Okay, so what I did, you don't have to do that. I used the button on the scale that says tare. So when you hit the tare button, it zeroes out your measurement, so it doesn't even count what's already on the scale. So it's the same thing as if you took it off and then zeroed it out. I hope that makes sense. So even if I had this piece of fondant on the scale, if I hit tare, it's going to zero out the scale and act like nothing's even on there. So it's a fresh measurement, but you could also just take this off and just hit tare again to be at 0. It's however you feel most comfortable working with the scale. Okay, so I'm going to finish combining the colors. This is what it looks like so far. It almost looks marbly. I'm just going to knead it a little bit more until this is fully combined. And again, you can find a similar color mix to this on the Satin Ice Pinterest. They actually even have a color mix sign up at Michael's as well in the stores. It's really helpful. But this is definitely one of my favorite features about the Satin Ice Fondant is that all the colors that are available and that you can just mix it into new shades. And if you like one of the color mix recipes we have online, but you want it to be a little different, you can totally add more or less of any other color to make it unique for you. Okay, so my color has come together, matches this color. And then, so now what we're going to do is, I'm only going to take a small amount of this because we don't have to roll out that much. And then I'm going to save this part for later. Okay. So again, I'm just going to roll this into a ball. I am going to dust a little bit more cornstarch on my surface. Rub it around. And I'm just going to flatten out this piece of fondant a little bit to, again, get out any air bubbles that could be stuck in there from us folding it when we were kneading. So I'm just going to lightly roll this out because I actually just flattened it out quite a bit by doing that. So I'm just going to roll it back and forth lightly to make sure my surface is smooth. And now we're going to be making this, the pot shape right here. So I have a square cutter that I said this is about 1.25 inches. Again, you want to go by the width and the size of your circle cutter. So if you are using a bigger circle cutter, you can use a bigger square cutter because it's going to take up the same amount of space. So I'm just going to press down. When I make a cut with the fondant and my cutters, I like to just give it a little jiggle just to make sure it's a nice, like, clean cut and that there's no frays on the edges, because some cutters could lose their sharpness after a while. So I just like to shake it a little bit. And here we are. So again, after you cut a piece of fondant, you want to minimize the amount of times that you're going to be picking it up and down. So I do have my fondant discs next to me, so I will be layering them on as I cut them. Okay, so any extra, just put it back in your bag with your others. There might have been a question come through. I don't know, I missed it.
I think I've said all of them so far. I've just been putting some of the links into some of the items you're moving.
That's what it was. Okay, so now that I have my square cut out, we do want to give it a little shape, kind of that tapers down the bottom edge. So the bottom edge is going to be a little bit narrower than the top. So what I'm going to do is on the left side, I'm going to angle my knife into the right to make a tapered diagonal cut. Just a little bit in from the edge. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So just a little bit from the edge, but this time, since I'm on the right side, I'm going to angle in my knife a little bit to the left and cut down. So now this is going to give us the shape of a flower pot. And if when you cut that your edges get like a little frayed or anything, you could just take your finger and just smooth out the edges gently. So this is the shape we have right now. I am going to cut down the top a little bit so that it's shorter. So I'm going to just move down a little bit from the top and make a cut just to make that a little bit shorter. And you can actually save this piece that you just cut off from the top. We're going to use that as like the little lip of the rim on top of the cutter, on top of the flower pot. So we're just going to gently pick this piece up. And you might not even have to use water to adhere this piece if your fondant is sticky enough. Right now, mine seems to be, so I'm not going to use any water. And I'm just going to place this directly onto my green fondant disc. If you do need to use water, a tip I like to use is take your paper towel, take it out of the paintbrush out of the water and gently dab the brush onto the paper towel because this is going to dab out any excess water. If you use too much water, you could see some colors running and it could just get way too sticky. So I really like to use the smallest amount. Okay, so we have our flower pot onto our green disc. And now what I'm going to do is attach this excess piece that we cut off from the top. And I'm just going to layer this on top of the top edge of it, kind of as the little, the top edge of the flower pot. Bring this up closer so you can see. And again, I'm working directly onto this parchment paper because I want to minimize the amount of times that I'm picking this up, especially now, because these have already really started their drying process because this was like 15 minutes ago that we cut those out. So that's what we have so far. And then the next part is pretty easy. We're just going to make our leaves out of green fondant and cut out some pink flowers. So first, let's do the greenery because the flowers are going to be layered on top of that. So I already have my green fondant open from earlier, from the small portion that we cut off. And again, we're really going to need just a small amount here. So the way I made these leaves in here, I didn't use any tools. I just used my hands. And this is a technique I like to use with a lot of different shapes, especially for like small things like this, because there's not always cutters that are this tiny. So what I'll do is I'm just going to give this green fondant a little knead, get it soft. And I'm going to dust a little portion of my surface with some cornstarch in case I need it for my hands. Okay, so what I'm going to do to make a leaf shape, I have a really small ball of green fondant here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pointer finger lightly on one side of the ball, and I'm going to roll back and forth to kind of create a tapered cone shape. So this is what you're going to end up with after you do that. So it's like a teardrop or like a cone shape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use our pointer finger, take some cornstarch if you need to on the tip of your finger, and lightly press down to flatten it out. And then you're going to get a leaf shape. And again, if you have to use your knife to help you pick up the piece off your surface, you can do that. But there you go. There's a leaf shape. So now what you can do is you can just start layering this on top of your fondant disc above the flower pot in different directions, and you can do different sizes. It's cool if the tip of your leaf actually gets a little bit of movement. So you can like bend it a little bit to make it look more realistic. So you're just going to repeat this process to do a bunch at a time. So just roll some small balls of the green fondant. I'm working with pieces like the size of a pea and smaller than that, all different sizes. And then you can like place them wherever you think they look best. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now, since I have all of the balls, I'm just going to, again, lightly roll back with my pointer finger on one side to get a tapered edge. And I'm just going to continue to do this with each one I have here. And then I'll go flat in each one. So I'm just lightly rolling back and forth with my pointer finger to create that tapered like cone shape. I might not end up needing all of these, but we'll do them anyway. And we're gonna use this same technique actually for the little leaves around the flowers on the watering can and the tools. So if you have extra from doing this, just put them to the side and then you can use them for later. Okay, so I have all of these cones. Again, I'll pick it up so you can see what the shape looks like. And then all we're going to do is just lightly flatten each one, just by lightly pressing down on each one with your pointer finger, just enough to flatten it to make it look like it's a shape of a leaf. Right. And again, some could be bigger, some can be longer. You can manipulate them even more once you have them flattened to make it pointier, give it some movement. Does anyone have any questions?
So far, so good. Want to let you know that there was a comment that says, thank you for showing me. With that message actually came from Maybell Minnie. I can't see all the other part of the name, but they just want you to know that to say thank you and for showing everyone else.
Of course. And if you guys ever have questions about the fondant, you can always reach out to us on social media and we're here to help you. Okay, so I'm just continuing to flatten out these cone shapes to create all of these leaves. So now I'm just going to transfer these over to this green disc next to the other leaves. And I'm just going to attach these. So I am going to use a little bit of water for this. So I'm going to take my brush out, pat it dry a little bit, and just brush a little bit of water on top of this green disc in the areas that I'm going to be placing the leaves. Did see a question come through. I think it said, where can I get fondant? You can get the Satin Ice fondant at Michael's. So now I'm just going to randomly start placing these leaves, and I might have some like hang over the flower pot like I did. I'll pick this up at the end to show you guys how I have my leaves laid out.
Sarah, there's a question asking, where do you buy the design? I'm not for sure if they're asking how you're coming up with the design.
Oh, I just came up with the design on my own. But really that's the great part about it, is that you can just use your creativity and create any design. You can do this with any colors you want, any shapes for different like flower pots that you want. Okay, so I'm going to save these other leaves for later. I might use them. I have enough here right now. So this is what I did. I just kind of added these leaves to the top of the green disc. And then I layered some over the edge as well. And then I gave some of the tips of the leaves some movement. So now all we have to do is layer on the flowers. So what we can do is we're going to cut out the flowers for the rest of the designs as well. And you can use straight up pink, or you can make it more of a pastel pink by adding some white. So I'm just going to open up my pink fondant. And again, we're really using a small amount here because these flowers are very tiny. So I'm just going to take off a really small portion of the pink, and I'm actually going to mix in some white because I do want a pastel shade of pink. Just making sure that I'm putting my fondant away. And now I'm just going to pull out some white. And here I'm just eyeballing the amount of fondant I'm using. I have a small portion of pink, and I know that I'm going to need more white and pink to tone down the brightness. So I'm just going to add some white, and we can mix those two together.
Hey, Sarah, when you get a moment, can you show the cupcake that your first cupcake, the one that's already done, a little bit closer so they can see?
Yes.
Thank you. And then also there's a question asking, do you set the fondant on top of the frosting? And what exactly does the fondant taste like? And,
okay.
And would they eat it as a whole?
Yes. Okay. So fondant is really, really delicious. It's almost like a rollable frosting. So it kind of almost has like a frosting taste to it. So what I do is, some people actually put this directly onto their cupcake. They don't put any buttercream over it. We are working with buttercream. I like to do this. I like to put buttercream on and then do a fondant disc, but you want to let this fondant disc dry. So that's why you're able to just pick it up and put it on top. If you were to try to pick up these that we're currently working with, they're going to be way too flimsy still. So that's why I like to let them air dry, like overnight or something, before placing them onto the cupcake. So that's why it's great too, because you can make these toppers in advance and then place them onto your creation. You can put them on top of any dessert, really. I mean, if you made brownies and you had like little brownie squares, you could place toppers on top of those, however you want to use it. So I mixed the white into the pink fondant, and now I have a lighter shade, and I'm just going to roll this out. And we're going to cut out some flowers. So I'm using this small flower plunger cutter. I love these because you just click the plunger and the flower shape will pop right out rather than it getting stuck. So I just press down, give it a little twist, and then hit the top and the flower will just pop right out. So for this one, I'm just going to probably put like 4 flowers on this, but I'm going to cut out a total of 8 flowers. So I'm going to use 4 on here, and then I'm going to use the rest later on the other toppers. Okay, so I'm just pressing down, giving it a twist so I know that the cut is nice and clean, and then popping it out. So I'm just going to cut out one more. I'm cutting out a total of 8 flowers. Okay. So any of this extra fondant, you'll want to put in your bag. And then now I'm going to slide this back over, and we're going to place the flowers on. So again, with my water, I just want to make it so the brush is pretty much just damp. So I'm going to pat out any extra water, and I'm just going to mark the areas on the leaves where I think I want to add some flowers.
And so while you're doing that, I just want to let everyone know that they can watch a lot of your previous classes on our YouTube channel. I will put a couple of the video links in there so you can always go back and watch. There is a question asking about if fondant can be placed on sugar cookies, and I can definitely say yes.
Yes.
There is a Satin Ice Halloween cookie link that I'm going to be putting in the chat so that you would be able to watch that video. And while I have your attention, Sarah, there is a question asking, I almost forgot it myself. Oh, what if you don't have a flower cutter?
If you don't have a flower cutter, I guess, I mean, okay, I have a solution for you. If you don't have a flower cutter, I'll show you really, really quick. You can make like little rosettes by just rolling up a little fondant, and it's just gonna look like a little swirl. But you're gonna take a little piece of fondant, like you're gonna see how small I'm working with right now. I'm gonna pick it up, this little skinny piece. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna kind of make a swirl out of this, and you're just gonna roll it. And it will look like it's like a little like rosette or rosebud, and you can place those on if you want. There's so many different ways you can do things with fondant. So, but that was a really good question because a lot of people don't have that small of a flower cutter. And then, is there another question? Oh, the sugar cookie thing. Yes, you can put fondant on sugar cookies. It's absolutely delicious. And it's one of my favorite things to do because it's a lot neater than doing like royal icing because you just roll the fondant out and you cut out your shapes. Okay, so next we're going to be working with the silver shimmer fondant. I love this stuff. It's awesome. It has edible glitter already mixed into the fondant, so you don't have to use like luster dust or edible paint. You already have the shimmer in there. So we're just gonna cut this open and we're going to make the watering can. We already have our flower cut and I already have extra leaves. So all we have to do is just roll out the silver fondant to cut out these shapes to make the watering can. And I did wipe my hands to make sure there was no other color stuck before moving to cut this color. I also want to say with the shimmer fondant, you can mix into the classic fondant colors and create shimmer in any shape. So you can create like a rose gold, you can create like a shimmery pink, a shimmery blue. It's endless with what you can create. So I'm just going to cut a small portion of this off. Place that to the side. And we're just going to knead this just to soften it up. Okay. When you're using the shimmer fondant, you might notice it has a slightly different texture than the classic. That's just because it is a slightly different formula because of the pearlescent pigments inside of it. I don't know if this is coming up on camera, but it's so glittery and it's so pretty. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna roll this out a little bit. I did flatten it out a little bit, so I'm just going to lightly roll it out just to smooth out the surface, and then we'll begin cutting the shapes for the watering can. And when we're working with this piece, we wanna be aware of the size that we're making this because of the size of our cupcake disc that we're working with. I mean, I hope you guys can see this on camera. In person, it's insane. So pretty. Okay, so I'm taking the my little rectangle cutter and I'm just going to press down, give it a little twist again to make sure the cut is nice and clean. And I'm going to leave this extra that I have rolled out because we'll cut out other shapes as well. But basically, I want to see where I'm going to have to cut this because it's like too tall. So I'm going to just cut like a small strip off the top. And then I'm also going to make this a little bit narrower. So I'm just going to, like we did before, I'm just going to make sure that my knife is clean from the other colors before I cut into it. That's another thing. If any fondant gets stuck to your tools in between colors, you just want to make sure you wipe it really good and make sure it's dry. So I cut off a small portion of the top And now I'm just going to, on the left side, go a little bit inward and a little bit slanted into the right, just to kind of give this watering can a little bit of shape. Just gonna taper in the edges a little bit and do the same thing on the other side. So this is the shape we have right now. And I'm just gonna place it onto my disc just to know with what we're working with. Okay, so I was able to just stick that right on because my fondant is on the warmer side for my hands. And actually, the piece that you cut off the top, you can actually use this for the spout part, which is this, that spout. And if you didn't save this part, you can just really roll out a small log of fondant and press it down to make it flat, or cut out a really small skinny rectangle. So since I have this already, what I want to do is I just want to taper this a little bit so that it sits in nicely onto the watering can. And I'm just going to attach this on the left side. So it's touching the watering can. Like that.
Hey, Sarah, it looks like you have paused. Just one moment, everyone. While she's having some technical difficulties at this moment, I just want to remind you that this class is being recorded and will be available on Monday. And that will be available on our YouTube channel. And of course, if you're making any of these projects, please post them on any of our social media using the hashtag #MakeItWithMichaels and hashtag Michaels Classes. I'm hoping that we'll get her back here soon. I know we're nearing the end of class. And just know, I know that someone asked about the flower cutters. I did put a link here in the chat so that you will be able to get those links for the cutters or any of the products. And also just know that you can also save the chat. There are 3 dots in the chat field. And when you click on it, you'll see a option that says Save Chat. And you can click that and you'll be able to keep all the links that have been provided so far. I'm just going to give her a few more moments. I know the class is nearing the end. If she doesn't come back, then I will end this class and then we will see what we will do so that you will be able to see the end of the class. Okay, guys, I don't see that she's going to, it doesn't appear that she's made it back in yet. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. And once again, I do apologize for the technical issues that Sarah had. And I really hope you all have a great weekend.